You'll have to excuse my hand in the cookie jar for just a moment because there's good news. The Spider-Man Lotus film dropped, and it's quite possibly the goofiest movie I have seen in the past 5 years, give or take. Now, with that being said, of course, Spider-Man Lotus had a lot of controversy coming out, simply because the main actor and the main director both had racial allegations pinned against them, that of which they seem to have doubled down on in the movie, actually, but that'll come later. So they, kind of talked about it or whatever, and while those people are truly terrible people, I still found it, my curiosity peaked, and I watched the movie, and let's just get right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the sound quality, all right? I could talk about the opening scene, I could talk about how goofy that is, but I feel like the sound quality is the first thing that really jumped out to me. Spider-Man's vocals in this movie are incredibly muffled. I mean, just like, I understand he's speaking through a mask, and it's probably something they didn't want to go back and dub themselves, but it's just so muffled. You can barely make out anything he's saying. And as a character who relies on a lot of quips, a lot of, ha ha ha, got you with this one, it's just like, I can't hear him, and everyone's talking like everything's normal. I can't hear you, dude. And not to mention, there is an obnoxious amount of soundtrack usage in this movie where it's like a piano or it's like an orchestral ensemble, but like behind my ears, and it's just like right in your ears. It's like right here. It's so annoying to deal with that in a scene where I'm trying to understand what's happening, because all I hear is ding, ding, ding in the back of my ear, and I'm just like, dude, even if there was a story to care about, I'm not even getting it, right? So the second thing I want to talk about is a controversy that happened shortly after the racial allegations, in which the visual effects artist actually left the production team when it came to this movie because of those allegations. And it's quite evident because you can tell halfway through the movie, like, there's a significant decrease in production quality. Especially like with certain scenes, there's like shots of Spider-Man, or there are shots of the city that look, they're not terrible, right? It's not super polished, but it's not something to complain about. And then there are some scenes like this. This looks like something out of your local neighborhood, like Nissan retailer. Like, they're going to be like, the 2023 Altima, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, it looks so tacky. It just looks so like Unreal Engine. Like, they just had like, some idea of what they wanted to go for, but they couldn't really shoot it in the city, because if they shot it in the city, they wouldn't have the funds to do it. So the budget is obviously skewed here. And I get that whoever did work on this probably didn't try their best, but I mean, come on. Yeah, so not the cleanest production from Mr. Gavin J. Connup, but ultimately, this is the second scene that starts the movie out. So first you have the Spider-Man dialogue, and then you have this scene of an encounter that Spider-Man has with Shocker. Now, for whatever reason, even though I'm not going to, talk about Shocker's design, Shocker, whoever's playing this character, just seems to be doing this the whole time. They're like this. And I have no idea what the fuck for. Like, Shocker's not a character that really strikes me as someone going like this all the time. And it's quite distracting when you're trying to pay attention to the action, which the movie has little of. But it's so distracting because it just seems like some like artistic, choice. The actor, whoever was, like, this is my chance. I have to do something to set myself apart. And you just see him in the back just doing this. And I just can't wrap my head around it. So he has an encounter with Shocker, and of course the sound quality comes in, and it's just him making a ton of quips, a lot of which stops the battle, and it's just like, what are we doing here? Like, are you going to catch the bad guys or what, right? So eventually he catches them, and then we move into, obviously the transition from Spider-Man to Peter Parker, and he's late for something, right? So cliche story, I'm not, surprised at, but he pulls the watch out of his jacket as if like he shouldn't wear it on his wrist, period. Like, he's just like, yes, this is where this goes. And it didn't strike me as odd until I realized, like, damn, that's a watch he pulled out of his jacket. He could have just put the watch on, I guess. But, I mean, if he's really in a hurry, I mean, you would be more convenient to have a watch on your wrist. But nitpicking aside, the movie gets even goofier from here. So, obviously, there's some encounters, some dialogue between the main cast, of which is Harry Osborn, MJ, Gwen Stacy, obviously Peter Parker. And there's a comment made by Harry Osborn in which it says, "Do you like the Fu Manchu?" And if you don't know what that is, it's a stereotypical Chinese, facial hair pattern that is used to be derogatory. So, like I said earlier, it seems like they have doubled down on the racist allegations, even within the movie. Because, fun fact, I couldn't find a single person of any cultural or ethnic background in this movie. Everyone's pasty, all right? Everyone is white as hell in this movie, and I couldn't find anybody in this movie. I mean, even the background characters, I was really looking. I was, like, intent on finding someone that I could possibly relate to in this movie, and it just didn't happen. There's not a single person in here that has any diversifying qualities other than the main guy being Peter Parker. So they double down on the racist bullshit, right? And my favorite part of this dumbass movie, okay, we can skip some of this, right, is the 35-minute fucking, like, sit down that Spider-Man has with this kid. It is just mind-blowing how much time this fucking kid takes up. So Peter Parker, spoiler warnings, I guess, he goes to the cemetery where Gwen Stacy is, and he gets a letter from MJ. And in this letter, it shows a kid writing Spider-Man. He's like, "Yo, I'm mentally ill. What's up?" So he goes to see the kid, right, after, of course, guilt-tripping himself over whatever the fuck happened. We don't really know all of it, but it happened. So he goes to the kid, and he sits down, and he's talking with him, right? And so it's this just fucking blasphemous display of just emotional tyranny. Like, I couldn't believe it. Spider-Man was just trauma dumping on this kid, dude. And of course the kid's like, "Oh, what happened? What happened?" I didn't expect the man to just go full turbo. I didn't expect him just to freaking dump every single emotion he had on this kid. So we're sitting here, I'm like, man, we've been here for a while, right? And I'm not really one to, like, kind of pay attention, right? But I'm like, dude, this kid has been fucking here forever, man. I just can't get past this kid, right? So scrolling through, I'm like, okay, when does this scene actually stop, right? And so it was like a 10-minute span. I'm like, okay, 10 minutes is not long for a scene, I guess. And that was just the pause in between the scene continuing, because it cuts to fucking Harry Osborn and MJ in the car, and it goes back to the kid. So then I'm like, okay, now we're getting to, like, the dry spell, I guess. So I'm sitting there looking, and I'm like, man, how long does the scene really end? So for reference, I'm actually going to show you guys what I'm talking about, okay? So if I just skip in here, right, and then we get to the kid, okay? And the kid should start around here, right? Okay, so this is where the kid scene starts, right? Okay, so this is the kid, right? This scene from right here all the way to right here, around here, is where I want to say I thought it ended, right? And then this goes on and on and on. The kid is still here, by the way. It goes on and on and on and on and on. The kid is still here. And finally, after months of deliberation, he finally lets this fucking kid go and play his video games. And he's just like, it's like, dude, how much of the fucking movie is this going to take up? And of course he's going to give the cliche speech where he's like, yeah, well, you gotta be Spider-Man. Of course, he fucking reveals his face to him, too. It's a stupid, terrible decision of Spider-Man. But, of course, this is something that's just... it's still going. It's still going. And finally, 1/29/19, mark your calendars, baby. We finally got to the end of this fucking kid, bro. I swear. 40 minutes of this movie are dedicated to this kid, all right? And I'm not necessarily mad at the fact that it's 40 minutes of this kid. I'm mad at the fact that the movie has not given me a fuck to care about this kid at all, right? So I don't know why I'm spending so much time on this kid. Maybe I'm just passionate about this dumbass scene, okay? Because all of it is just like orchestral piano, check. Bad sound design, check. This kid getting trauma dumped on, check. And not to spoil anything, but in the movie, we supposedly get like a flashback of what the events occurred to lead Spider-Man to this, right? So the action, instead of rather taking place on the end of the movie, it takes place in the middle in the form of a flashback. So we're getting bits and pieces of this, and I can actually show this real quick because they don't show the actual altercation of what happened. They just show like this sort of like comic book sketch style, like presentation. And of course, the images here do look good. The images, I'm not sure if they pulled from a comic or they had an artist do them themselves, but it looks decent. And then we finally get to this point, and it's just like, oh, that happened, and I have to care about what happened. So if you weren't paying attention, not that it would make a difference, but if you weren't paying attention, then you would be like, well, how the fuck did we get here, right? So, and then throughout the movie, of course, there are scenes like which, right, I want to say further down the line, yeah, right here, where it's black and white, and it just shows, sort of this just dreary fucking, like, display of just like sappiness and stuff like that. And it's just like, man, this movie could not give two fucks about the narrative that's going on. And I gave up halfway through the movie. I watched the entire thing, but I just kind of like, I zoned out. Like, it was just like everything after the main fight scene, which takes place in the middle of the fucking movie, it just like bled on and on. So I guess this story was mostly about Spider-Man finding himself after a tragic event or something like that. But the movie does not execute this well at all, and for that reason, it's probably the goofiest movie I have seen in quite a long time. I don't recommend checking it out. Of course, I didn't want to give this any more engagement than it already has, considering who it came from. But my curiosity did pique, and ultimately, it is something. It is. I'm actually happy they put it out because I would not have seen a train wreck like this in my spare time. So with that being said, yeah,